So I am 21 years old. It's June of 1999. Sunday morning, it's around 7 a.m. and I am standing on the side of the road and I have had to borrow a stranger's cell phone so that I can call my mom and tell her that I'm afraid I've just killed a man. I had been out the night before drinking all night long. I had not gone to bed at all, and I was driving home the following morning, fell asleep at the wheel, left the road and ran over a man who was on a bicycle out for a Sunday morning ride. The next 3 to 6, several weeks, the sound of a phone ringing was enough to just sheer terror. It was either going to be a prosecutor calling to tell me that they were ready to send me away for the rest of my life, or it was going to be a hospital calling to tell me that he had passed away. Ultimately, that call from the hospital never came. He eventually left the hospital and was able to recover, but the call from the prosecutor did come. And I was sentenced to a intoxication assault, which is a 3rd-degree felony and carries with it 2 to 10 years in prison. So eventually I pled guilty to that charge, and I signed for, it was 6 months of jail time, 10 years of probation, and then I had a monthly restitution payment and community service that went along with that. So now I'm 23 years old and I'm sitting in jail, and I have an opportunity to make a decision about do I want to allow this to define me? Do I want to be a 23-year-old felon and what goes with that, and continue down that path? Or do I want to try and make amends for what I had done, and do I want to try and fix this situation, and do I try to start to repair the damage that I had caused both to my family and to this man and to his family, of financial, physical, emotional damage. And so I come home, it's been 6 months, and my family has a little kind of a welcome home party for me, and family and loved ones are all there, and there's food and there's music and there's hugs and there's support and there's laughter, and kind of a very joyous situation, maybe a little bit more joyous than I felt I deserved. So it was a little overwhelming though, so they eventually leave, and I'm sitting at home now and I'm just trying to process being home, and my next move is to call my drinking buddies from back in from just 6 months ago. And of course they're excited that I'm home as well, and so they come over and we spend the next 8 or 9 hours drinking quite heavily. And they're telling me, they're saying, this isn't your fault. You were in the wrong place at the wrong time. This could have happened to any of us. And I already, I think, had in my head this kind of victim mentality that this had happened to me. I had not created this situation, and so that played very well into my ability to kind of feel sorry for myself. And consciously or subconsciously, I think that night I kind of made a decision that stuck with me in the way that I behaved for the next 9 years. So my relationship with my family very quickly devolved. It was full of dishonesty and disrespect. I stopped showing up. I stopped being around for holidays. I missed things. I lied. I think I felt like whenever I would see them and they would look at me, I imagined that they could see me for what I was, or for what I thought I looked like, which was, I was full of kind of insecurity and self-loathing. And so rather than try and address that, I just left, and I didn't want to be around that. Over this 9 years, I actually managed to total 3 more cars driving drunk. Nobody was ever hurt. There were never any consequences for this, but 3 more times I had opportunities to kind of look at what I was doing and to reevaluate, and those opportunities just kind of came and went, and I never did anything about that. I had a friend who, we had been friends, Joe, and we had been friends since we were 21, early 20s, and we were going out and drinking buddies for several years, and then around his mid-20s, he decided that he wanted something different. And so first was a trip to Costa Rica, and he went for maybe a week, and then was like a 6-month trip to Africa, and then it was like a year-long trip around the world. And he had an email list, and so I'm following this email list, and I'm seeing these photos of him all over the world, and these stories of just camels in the Sahara Desert and beaches in Thailand and all these things, and I'm amazed that somebody like me could have a life like that. But I knew that life, I couldn't have that life, because I was a victim, I was a martyr, I was kind of paying for the sins of all my friends and all the people who just, I was in the wrong place at the wrong time, and I'm on probation and I have these restitution payments. it never really occurred to me that Joe was coming home from some of these trips, and he was setting money aside, and he was saving for his next, dream trip, and all of my money was coming into my hands and going right into my next drink. That was kind of lost on me. So after a bunch of years of this type of behavior, I decided that maybe I needed to do something different. And I met a man named Rob who had a run group here in town. And every year him and his group would start to train for the Austin Marathon, and then they would 4 or 5 months, and they'd go run the Austin Marathon. And I thought that maybe training for a marathon would be a little bit healthier than blacking out 6 or 7 days a week. And I was like, maybe it's time for something new. And so I would show up for a couple weeks. I would dabble with training, and I would, we would meet a couple times a week, and I would, maybe skip 1 or 2 here or there. But then eventually Saturday morning long runs would start. And these are, when the real brunt of your training starts. And, these runs would start at 6 or 7 o'clock in the morning. And that was the end of my training. There was no way I was going to make it to something like that. I desperately wanted to finish a marathon. I did not have the capacity to train to run a marathon. And so, drinking came very naturally to me. Running did not. And so that was that. So 9.5 years into my probation, I have 3 months left, and I was actually managing a restaurant over here in West Campus. I was a general manager. And I get off work one night, and I'm sitting around drinking with my staff and a bunch of regulars, and we close down the bar, and I'm driving home, and I'm pulled over. And immediately I find myself in the back of a car, and now I'm charged with the DWI, and very quickly my probation is revoked, and I'm sentenced to 3 years in prison. And so now I have another opportunity, for the 5th or 6th or 10th or whatever time I've hit rock bottom. I've lots of rock bottoms that other people would have kind of figured it out from. I was ready to do something maybe a little bit different, and so I have this opportunity. I'm sitting in prison, and I'm looking at all these people who have been making the same decisions that I've been making, but they've been making them for a little bit longer, and their health is racked, and they're in and out of the hospital constantly, and this is their 4th and 5th time to prison, and they have no friends or loved ones or family, and I knew that I had to do something differently. There was this moment when I was drinking that right before I would black out, I always had this sense that, like, if anything was possible for a few moments, and if I just woke up the next morning and I just tried to do the right thing, maybe things could get fixed. And those mornings never came. But here I am, I've just signed for this 3 years of prison time, and I'll never forget that, like, literally signing the paper, just the weight of everything just kind of fell off. And for the first time I could live this life, and I could go be this person, and I could have this fresh start. And so I get paroled, and I'm home, and my first job is, I was on house arrest, so I had this big giant ankle monitor. And my job is back at the restaurant where I was general manager, but now I'm the daytime lunch waiter. And there's no way they're gonna let me anywhere near managing the place, but they'll let me come just so I have a job, so that they'll let me out of my house. And so now I am, mid-30s, and I'm waiting tables on a bunch of college kids, and the people who are my boss were my employees just a year ago. And it was just kind of the ultimate final destruction of the ego, like just tearing down whatever was left from that person. And I kind of had talked to Mom about this, and she had helped me get into rehab before I was sent to prison. And I committed to her at that time. I said, I want this to be different. I wanted to do something. And she never wavered. It was immediate commitment back to me. We shared phone calls while I was away. We exchanged letters constantly. She would come and visit me. And we've continued to maintain that relationship. And she's actually here. And she'll get better. But we now, that relationship is one of the most important things in my life now. We take family vacations together. I'm proud to say I have yet to miss a holiday in 9.5 years. And we're even business partners now. And so, but additionally, one of the first phone calls that I made, knowing that I have to do something different, I called Rob and I said, look, I want to do this Austin Marathon thing. It's not going to be easy, but I want to do this, and I can't go back to that. And he said, he didn't hesitate. He said, if this is what you need, I want to help you. And he committed to me, and I committed to him, and I committed to the work. And 4 or 5 months later, I ran my first marathon. and 10 months after that, I ran another one, and it's now very much a part of my life, and it's who I am. And I've got some running friends here tonight, and that's a huge part of my life. And I've actually had the opportunity through running to work with folks who are still struggling with addiction, or younger kids who have been in and out of trouble. And I've been able to show them kind of the peace and the zen that comes with kind of losing yourself in runs rather than losing yourself in these other things. I also had an opportunity to reconnect with Joe, who is also here. I have a lot of friends here. He convinced me after about 2 years home, and I kind of had my feet underneath me. He wanted me to come to Thailand with him. And he had started a nonprofit, and so we left and we went to Thailand. We took a 3-week trip, and I got off the plane in Bangkok, and my mind was blown. I mean, the smells and the sounds and the sights of something so foreign, it just immediately, like a fire inside of me was lit that I had to do this more. And we were able to, following that trip, we got an opportunity to go to Guatemala, and then it was Kenya and Istanbul, and travel. Before I knew it, I was sending home Instagram posts and emails and things to friends and family, and I was now that person that was able to inspire other folks to get out and see the world, and was able to share this life that meant so much to me. And now, either with Joe or with my wonderful, amazing wife, I've been to 26 or 27 countries, and I know that that'll be something that I do for the rest of my life. And then last, but certainly not least, before I just had failed relationship after failed relationship. I couldn't handle being in a room by myself, and so I needed to be in relationships, and it was I was like a serial monogamist without the monogamy. It was one unhealthy relationship after another, after another, after another. And so when I came home, I wanted to do that differently. It was important, because of my mom and because of everything else. I needed to treat that with respect. And so I slowly started trying to learn how to date sober, which is just, it could be a whole collection of stories. And I failed at it a lot, but I also got some things right. And finally, after about 5 years of that, and about 5 years ago, a friend of mine convinced me to get on Tinder. And so it's a different experience if you're sober, but I got on, and in November of 2015, I swiped right on a beautiful girl named Amanda, who her profile picture was of her in Big Bend, and that just kind of spoke to me. And our first date was actually at Halcyon, as you mentioned earlier, but and we went for the coffee part. But after a couple months of dating, we actually took a 4-week trip to India, and that was when I knew that this is it. I found her, and that was, we were married. We dated for about 2.5 years. We were married in May of 2018, and we've traveled the world together. And she has taught me what it is to love and to share and to. Anyway, she's amazing, and we're planning a life and a family together. And between all these kinds of blocks of life, I've learned the value of just kind of putting one step in front of the other and picking up the pieces. So, thank you.
Mason has been sober for 9.5 years. After a 13-year career in severe alcoholism and some not so short jail prison stints. In the time since finding sobriety and his new life, Mason has run 11 marathons, the Grand Canyon, has visited 26 countries, is an avid traveler and lover of the earth, and met and married the absolute love of his life and his partner in non-crime. We are at that point